All right, dear, we're recording now. Yeah, we got it going here. Oh, well, good morning, everyone. It's starting out to be a beautiful day here in Northwest Arkansas on a Sunday morning. They're predicting that the clouds are going to start rolling in a little while and the sun's going to go away. In fact, it looks like it's already starting to do that. And our high today is only going to be in the upper 40s. So, anyway, about that though, we've got a little electric heater going in here right now, and it's very, very comfortable in here right now, just with an electric heater. And we did some more work, and we're going to show it all to you here in a little bit. You might be able to see a little bit of it back here in the background behind us here. But first, I want to mention one little thing. She's sitting in a smaller chair, and it sits lower, but it's not my fault, okay? I wanted to get her a chair like this one, and I got this one at Academy Sports, and I love it. I'm not trying to look like I'm dominating or anything like that.
This is my lake chair.
I know it's your lake chair.
This is the chair I like to put in the water and just sit there and let the waves hit me in the lake. This is my lake chair. I don't need a big fancy chair for that.
Well, she got that at Dollar General, and I think she paid a whopping $5 for it.
Actually, it was Walmart.
Oh, was that one a Walmart
That's
chair?
a Walmart chair
Ah.
for $5.
For $5, yeah.
That's all I need.
Yeah, okay. But just so everybody knows, whether she wants me to or not, I am going to be getting her a chair like the one that I'm sitting in, because I don't want it to appear like I'm trying to be, dominating over her or anything like that, because, well, for one thing, if y'all, just the brief moment that you met her last time in our last video, I think you realize that you already know who the real boss is anyway. But still, appearances are everything. So from now on, she'll be sitting in a chair like this one.
No, I won't.
If we
No expected.
swear. Anyway, we've done some more work here, and we're real excited about what we got done. But first, I want to mention a couple things. We are so pleased about all of the positive response we've had on the YouTube channel, I Ride RV Adventures. And we're almost up to 750 subscribers now, which is something we didn't expect at all. Didn't expect anything like this at all. We are nudging a total of 54,000 views on our channel. I don't know how many folks go ahead and watch all the videos all the way through, but still, when we see the numbers, we are just so appreciative, and it's just so amazing of all the interest that's been shown on our project here. I wish it was going a little bit faster. I wish we could accomplish a lot more so you could see a lot more of what we're doing. But we're kind of making this up as we go along. We had our basic ideas of what we wanted to do. And as we do it, my problem is I'm a thinker. I think all the time. I'm always drawing little pictures in my head. And I thought, well, I need to look into doing this. I need to look into doing that. So briefly here, before I move on as to what we've done so far, I want to kind of recap what we did up to this point. First off, when we first brought the trailer home, what was it, last November?
October, end of October.
Oh, the end of October. Of course, it sat here for a few days before we actually started coming in here and doing some stuff, because we were thinking and thinking and thinking. And then I had a friend of mine come over, and he helped me get all the interior plywood off of the walls. And that's when we discovered, after we had some hard rain and stuff like that, that we had a few leaks here and there. And where the water was mainly coming in was between the seams on the outside. Now, this is a 16-foot long trailer, and your aluminum panels that fit on the outside are 4 foot, 4 foot, 4 foot, so on and so forth. So you basically got 3 seams down one side, 3 seams down the other, plus where they join at the ends on each end. So what we did first, we took this product right here, and you've heard me talk about this product before. And I'm really, really impressed with this product, and it's not cheap. It's called Lexel. I don't work for Lexel.
I wish I did.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice? But this product is awesome. It's around $8 a tube. I inaccurately called it a silicone sealer in one of my first videos, and then later, after more research, I discovered that this is not a silicone. This is an elastomer sealer. It's different. What's cool about this stuff is once it sets up, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Once it sets up, it's nearly impossible to get it off. And if you think, well, I'm just going to take a razor knife and I'll just cut it where it's oozing out and then I'll just scrape off the excess. A razor knife, a brand spanking new blade in a razor knife, for the most part, just rolls right through it and doesn't make a dent in it. Once this stuff is sealed, it's there. That's just all there is to it. It's really, really awesome. And I've used it in many, many places around the trailer. What I did first was I took all the screws loose on every seam on the outside. And then I took some little shims, wooden shims, and slid them in between the seams so it would separate it just a little bit. And I ran a bead of this down on the outside at every seam. Then, when I put the screws back in, of course, it brought it down and a little bit of it oozed out. And for now, I'm just leaving that alone because when it dries clear. You've got to look pretty hard to see it. So, that's what we did first. Then, for added insurance, I also came on the inside and ran a bead in between almost every single stud where the stud meets the skin on the inside. I ran a bead on both sides of the studs. Then what I did, because I wanted to have a little bit more meat, if you will, at each seam where I would want to be putting my plywood back, I made some 1.5 inch by 1 inch wooden studs, and this has been painted with Kills. And this is a piece of it, and I colored this area black here so you'd be able to see it a little bit better. But I cut a 45-degree chamfer on that, and I ran a heavy bead of Lexel down that chamfer, and plus another bead on the back so it would stick. And this stuff works excellent as a glue as well. And I laid that up against every stud on both sides, everywhere where there's a seam on the outside. So not only did we have the insurance of having the Lexel on the outside of every seam, we also added more insurance by having a heavy bead of Lexel on the inside as well as having an extra place to run a screw on the flat side that faces inside the trailer. So doing all that made all the difference in the world. We had several hard rains and didn't have any issues at all. We did find one little leak the other day that we didn't catch when we had a super hard rain. And it was coming from one of the, where the wire goes in at one of the clearance lights on top of the fender on the driver's side. So what we did there, I went outside and I could see where the wire goes in. The clearance light that mounts on top of the fender has like a little tube that comes off of it and runs straight into the wall of the trailer. And I could see where they had missed one little spot of caulk, and that's where the water was coming in there. Here again, I took my Lexel and I ran a thin bead around that to cover that. When it dried, you can't even see it, and for more insurance, I went over to the other side and did the same thing. So as far as leaks are concerned, we've got them all licked. There are no more leaks at all. We've had several hard rains. Don't do that. Please, don't do that. And I want to touch briefly on this a little bit. You know, I had some folks come in and comment and say, well, why didn't you take it back to the manufacturer if you had leaks and what, you know, this and that, you know. I wouldn't have accepted it if it had a leak here and there. Folks, let me tell you something. First, we had this trailer specially made in Georgia, in Douglas, Georgia, and we live in Northwest Arkansas. That's 900 miles. So I wasn't going to haul it all the way back to Douglas, Georgia, of course, just because I had a couple little leaks here and there. In addition to that, this ain't my first rodeo, and I do think about these things, and when you consider the fact, and I've mentioned this before, when you consider the fact that when they put these things together on the outside, there's no gasket where the aluminum skin overlaps. They simply overlap it about 1 inch over a stud, and they run screws through it. That's it. Water has a way of finding its way in, you know, and I truly, truly believe that there are a lot of cargo trailers out there running around that have minor leaks and they don't even know it. You know, folks that buy trailers and use them for work, they're not gonna go and rip all the interior plywood off. They're gonna go in and build out their shelves and their cabinets, you know, to use it how they want to for work. And they won't discover the fact that they have a minor leak here and there. And these were minor leaks. It wasn't like the water was gushing in. They were minor leaks, is all they were. And I truly, truly believe that there's a lot of cargo trailers running around out there that have minor leaks, but the owners will never know it. The only time you will really know that you've got a leak is maybe 10 years down the line. If it's leaked in the same spot over and over again, then you might start to see some evidence on the plywood on the inside of your trailer. It might start showing through. So I'm not gonna run it down to Georgia. I'm not gonna call them up and chew them out. The people that I bought this from are awesome people. And I don't expect them to make this thing absolutely perfect. They didn't make it, even though I had them eliminate the ramp at the back or the barn doors and had them put a regular RV door at the back, and I had them put a regular RV door, of course, over here to the side. Even though we spec'd this thing out to build a RV, if you will, inside, or a tiny house, I prefer really to call it more like a tiny house. I did not expect them to build it to that point where it's not gonna have not one single leak. You're gonna have those kind of issues. And, you know, I know, I need to run on, but still, I just wanted to touch on that. So, that's what we did. We did that and we did that. Now, another thing I want to point out, what we've done, and I'm going to show you here in a little bit, and I'm going to show you how I faced out around the doors. I'm going to show you how I came up with an idea how to face out around the windows, since my walls are going to be double thick now. But I also want to point out the insulation that we used. Now, this we got at Lowe's, made by Dow. It's available in 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1 inch thick. Those are the ones that I readily saw there at Lowe's. They might have had it thicker than that, but I think when you went up to the thicker ones, it was the white products. They had some that were 1.5 inches. I think they even had some that were 2 inch or so. And those had a foil on one side or the other, had a foil film. This insulation here does not have a foil side to it. However, it does have on both sides, and it's stuck real good, but it has a very thin film. And I can peel it back there so you can see it, a very thin film. And this is on both sides. I'll see if I can get one started here on this side. It's stuck pretty good. But suffice it to say, yeah, there, I got it to go. There you go. See, it's got the film there, and it's got the film there. So it has a small film on both sides, and we went with a double layer. We went with a 1 inch thick first, you know, between the middle studs. And then we came back after we ran all of our furring strips around, which I'm going to show you that here in a second. Then we ran the 3/4 inch thick, because our furring strips are for the most part 1x4s, which of course a 1x is 3/4 of an inch thick. A 1x4 is not really 4 inches wide, it's 3.5 inches wide. So anyway, this is what we ran in between, so it came out for the most part fairly even. And then of course we're going to put our plywood back on top of that. So it does have a thin film on both sides of it. Now this product runs about $16 a sheet, which ironic, and it didn't make sense to us, but the 1 inch thick is pretty much the same price as the 3/4 inch thick. They're both right at around $16, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, a sheet. And altogether, I think so far, we've used on the walls about 14 sheets. Am I right?
We bought 6 the first time and 7 the next time.
Okay, so 13 sheets, and we've got a little bit left. Of course, we've already put 1 layer on the ceiling, and we will be adding an extra layer on the ceiling as well down the line. So this is what we used. Home Depot has the pink stuff made by Owens Corning. Same R rating. I didn't look at it really all that close to see if it has a film on both sides. I'm pretty sure it's got one on at least one side. It's pink in color, but it's $20 a sheet for a 1 inch thick sheet. But it's the same R rating. The 1 inch is rated at 5 Rs and the 3/4 inch is rated at 4. So when we have our 2 layers on the wall of 1 inch and then 3/4, we have a total of an R9 on the wall. And I'm going to say an R9 advertised price if I remember correctly,
Price.
huh? I mean advertised R rating, not advertised price. Sorry. One thing too, folks, anything that we do, all of my videos so far, all of them have been simply shot on the fly and uploaded exactly the way they are. There's no script, there's no editing involved. I still have yet to hone my editing skills, which we'll get to that point, down the line when we start traveling. When we continue, we intend to continue posting videos at least once every 2 weeks after we start traveling, just to document the ins and outs of living in our conversion and how it responds in traveling, because we will be embarking in November on roughly about a 4,000 mile trip, something like that, and be gone about 4 to 6 months, somewhere in that ballpark. We're planning on traveling to the south and southeast part of the country. We're going to try to chase 70 degrees. Our intentions is to end up at Key West at one point and then meander up the East Coast before we turn around and come back to Northwest Arkansas. So that is our plan. So that's another thing. As far as heating is concerned, we're not too concerned about, in fact, we're not going to have any kind of interior heat. The only thing we're going to use for heat, if we need it, is probably going to be an electric heater, because we're going with a 50 amp service. We're going with a 50 amp service rather than a 30, so we'll have more power available to us. We're going to be staying in mostly state parks and Corps of Engineer parks, and by and large, most of them have 50 amp service available. And many of these parks, we get a 50% discount because, well, we're old, so there's to it, and we have the Golden Pass. Well, I'm old.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so we're not concerned, we're not gonna be using propane heat, although we do have a Mr. Buddy heater, and the thing works fantastic. I've had it for several years. I use it quite a bit, but we're not planning on using propane inside. We're going to be cooking inside with a induction cooktop, which we already have that when we're plugged in. I will be getting me a Weber grill because I like to grill, and of course that will be when we're set up outdoors and grilling outdoors. So this is our plan. We're even going to have an electric hot water heater. We've already bought the heater. It's a 6-gallon Rheem electric hot water heater. It runs on 120 volts, and I'm going to set up a switch on it so that I don't have to let it cycle all day long if I don't deem it necessary. It doesn't take long when you turn on, we've had electric hot water heaters before, and it really doesn't take long to get the water warm enough to use. If you turn it on 30 to 45 minutes before you get ready to take a shower or wash dishes or whatever, usually that's adequate. So I'm not overly concerned about that either. We're not going to have any propane except for the occasional times that we cook outdoors with our Weber grill, and that's it. So that's our plan. One other thing I discovered I want to point out to you, and I've had this tool for quite some time. I bought it at Harbor Freight. Yep, I know, Harbor Freight, cheap junk. I paid like $45 for this multi-tool, and I've had it probably, time gets away from me, but I would say 3 years, but my wife will probably correct me and say, no, you've had it more like 5 or 6. And I've used it quite often throughout the years, on different projects and things like that. But what I did discover when you put this Half Moon wood cutting blade on it, for minute cuts, I rip up the insulation with my widths with my table saw. But when I come in and have to cut it to length, I found that this thing just zips right through it real quick. Set you up a cutting board. It works better if you set up a cutting board and you press down and actually push on the cutting board as you go. But it will cut through that like sliced butter, and it doesn't create a whole lot of dust and stuff like that. I have to wear a mask when I'm running my table saw cutting this, but I don't have to wear a mask when I'm using this. So, if you decide to go that route, pick you one of those up. They even have one now for $29.99. I don't know how good it is there at Harbor Freight, but this was the step upgrade that I bought, and it has served me well for all the projects that I do for several years now. So, there's been things I bought at Harbor Freight that I would have been better off buying somewhere else, but there's been a few things that's been pretty decent products. My chop saw, my compound miter saw, I got at Harbor Freight, and it works fabulous. So I'm tickled with it. So anyway, that's all that. I think I've covered all that. Now let me show you right quick what we did. Let me grab this thing here. Man, dear, you talk a lot. That was 19 minutes and 55 seconds.
Yeah.
I know it.
I talk a lot.
Anyway, all right. Now you see we ran the furring strips all up through here, all around. First I want to touch on, you see the one that runs along the top right here. That will be where, right here at the very top is where the interior plywood will go. It will stop just short. And the reason why is because there are some wiring, trailer wiring that runs down on both sides. And I wanted to leave all that open where I could have access to it if I ever needed to service those wires. So I'm not taking the paneling all the way to the ceiling. I'm going to leave that down. However, there will be, in places, there will be a soffit build that will be insulated that covers that I can easily remove. In other places, there will be overhead cabinets that will have a false back on it, and I can take that false back out and have access to all that. So there won't be any issues with being able to, with insulation, or any issues with being able to get in there and service the wiring. The next one that you see right below, right here, that one there is where the bottom back of the overhead cabinets will screw into. So I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of good meat right there all along the length. The overhead cabinets won't run the full length because there'll be a couple things that'll get in the way, like on down there a little bit will be a shower and stuff like that. But I went ahead and ran that strip, and it drops down, a little over 12 inches down from the top. And that will be when I mount my overhead cabinets, where I screw in the base of the cabinet right there to the back. Now, when I start doing my furring strips on the ceiling and go to work on laying the second layer there, I will be running a corresponding furring strip out here a ways that will also be meat where I can screw in the top part of my overhead cabinets. So I'll have a good place to a good area of meat there to run some screws in and make sure that the cabinets are really good and secure when they're mounted to the ceiling and the wall. So that's what we did there. Here's where, of course, where the flat screen TV will mount. And I had to build that out a little deeper right there. I've got backing plates now there that run all the way to the outside skin. And that will be plenty of meat, and it'll give me plenty of area and room there to determine exactly where I want to mount the brackets that will hold the flat screen TV. So that's all there. Now, what I did around the windows in order to get them built out right and everything, I took the old plywood that came off. And keep in mind, these windows were done at the factory. I had them mount these windows at the manufacturer. So there is metal stud work all the way around these windows. They actually went in and welded a frame all the way around. Now the width of that altogether, from here to here, the width of that is 1.5 inches. So what I did, I took the old plywood that came off that already had the radiuses cut in the corners, and I measured back 1.5 inches all the way around and cut them like that. And then I glued and screwed that piece back up to the metal framing that is all around these windows. And that's the way every window is done in this trailer. Now what we're going, then I came back and put an extra layer of 3/8, half of that width here that goes all the way around. And when I put my plywood up, the plywood will actually secure to there. So then you'll have this opening here, but the plywood will come all the way up to the end or the edge of this white strip that you see all the way around. When the trim rings go back in, you can see where we've drawn this radius here. The trim rings will cover that much. They will just about cover completely and butt almost right up against that edge there. And then of course they'll come down here. The only part that will really be exposed is this area here and here. We're going to paint this all black inside here. And then when the trim rings go up, and they're black as well, when they go back on, then all you'll have is this exposed area here. And of course it'll all be black, which will give the appearance, we're thinking, that this will look more like a square window rather than having the little corner radiuses. In addition to that, by doing it this way, the trim rings were designed to go up, utilizing the 3/8 plywood that they put here, the length of the screws and everything. So by putting these on this way and securing them, then I can reuse the same screws or screws of equal length. And I'm probably going to go back with some regular sheet metal screws. I've experimented with some and they work real good.
but I'll go back with screws of equal length, and that way I can be sure that the trim rings are going back exactly the way they're designed, rather than trying to stick them out a full 3/4 of an inch and then trying to run a long screw all the way in. There's just too many things that could go wrong there. So I figured this was the best way to do this. So when this is all said and done and the trim rings go back up and all those areas being painted black, it'll give the appearance of a square window rather than the radius corners. And then we'll have an area here that we can put a regular household trim all around that, should we decide to do it that way. So that's what we did there. We'll see how it works out. We'll keep you posted. But here again, when I glued that stuff up, I used Gorilla Glue construction adhesive. That stuff is stronger than ever. You will, if you ever use the stuff, you won't want to use anything else. It's not cheap. It too is about $8 a tube. And altogether, we've probably got roughly $200 in Lexel and construction adhesive in this thing so far. Didn't want to take any shortcuts. Now, the way I faced out the doors, these doors, the way they framed them in, for the most part, they used a 4-inch C-channel all the way around. So what we did, we filled insulation inside that C-channel, and then we laid up these 1x6s all the way around the doors, which again will give me plenty of meat, you know, and my paneling will come up to here. And now on these back doors, we're going to have cabinets that come all the way out to the edge and things like that. So, you know, it'll be a finished look when we get all done on both sides here. And I did the same thing to the door over here. The very same thing is done over here. And that's how we did that. Cutting these up here was fun. You know, had to work with some compound angles. And that's where my compound miter saw came in really handy. But it worked out pretty good. So we're real pleased with that. Anyway, that's where we are right now. We now have a total of 1 3/4 inch insulation on the walls. We're fixing to start hanging the paneling up today. We're going to reuse the same paneling that came off of this end and this end, but we're going to go with some different paneling on the side walls that has a much cleaner surface on it, so it'll accept paint or wallpaper or whatever we decide to do. So we're going with a little bit better quality. And I say paneling, I'm using the word loosely. It's going to be a plywood, but we're going with a better quality plywood on the side walls that has a very, very smooth finish. The ones on the ends, you won't even really be able to see that when it's done because there'll be so much stuff built over it anyway that it won't matter. Now, as far as weight is concerned, I know we have a lot of Weight Watchers out there. We've been adding stuff up as we go along. And where we're sitting right now, based on, and we actually weighed the boards. We weighed several of the boards and then got a average weight of how much they weighed per 5 boards, et cetera, et cetera. And we have determined, after we get the ceiling done, that we will have added between 220 to 250 pounds to the weight of the trailer. And this is after everything's done and the walls are back up and, you know, the side paneling is all back up and everything. After it's all said and done, we will have added roughly 200 to 250 pounds. Now this trailer, they claim, weighed roughly around 2,300 pounds. I think it was like 2,250, something like that. 2,250, 2,300, something like that when we picked it up. I really think this one actually weighed a little more than that because we had an extra height added. We added the ATP chrome all around the sides. There's a few little things that we added that didn't come on the standard trailer, and I didn't really question that. I often wonder if maybe they just use a standard weight for that based on a standard 7x16 trailer. So I imagine this one probably weighed in a little bit more than what they say. However, we did eliminate the ramp on the back, which I would think would be heavier than an RV door at the back. But after it's all said and done, after using the C-channel like they did and everything, probably not. It's probably going to be very similar to what it was before, so it's probably not going to make that much difference. We have been adding up all the weight of all the items we intend to put in here, and our target weight is roughly built out when we're done of around 4,000 pounds. And it appears that we're going to get there. It appears that it's going to be real close to that weight. Of course, as before, we start adding the stuff that we're going to carry with us, but we're also going to be towing with our van, which is rated to tow 7,900 pounds. Now, I know that towing capacity and gross vehicle weight capacity and things like that are entirely two different animals, But I've been keeping track of everything and looked at the ratings of my tow rig plus the ratings of this, and I'm going to be well within the limits of what I'm towing it with, and the limits of the weight rating of the trailer itself. The main thing we're concerned about, and we're on target there as well, is to make sure that we have enough weight on the nose. And I was joking around with my beautiful wife one day, and I said, if we don't get it right, it might mean that you have to ride in the front part of the trailer when we're towing it down the road. That didn't go over very well. What do you think? No, it didn't go over very well. But anyway, this went a lot longer. This is, oh man, this is 30 minutes long. I'm sorry. But there's a lot of things I wanted to cover. Here again, we appreciate the interest that has been shown. Thank you all so much. There's a whole lot more to come. We're going to be wiring the trailer here before long, and I'm going to show you how we're going to wire it. And I've got this all planned out, how the wiring is going to be run. No wiring inside the walls. There's no wiring in the walls at all. It's going to be all easily accessible, all of the wiring, yet when you walk into the trailer, you're not going to see a bunch of cords running here and there either. So we'll cover all that when we get there. We'll cover an idea that I have discovered on how to make the bed so that it folds up into 2 couches on both sides of the trailer and still easily folds out to make a bed. Found that idea on watching some tiny house videos. So we'll be covering that. There's a whole bunch more to come, folks, so please stay tuned. Thank you so much. I apologize for the video being so long this time. Y'all take care. Have a good week coming up, and we'll see you again in another week or two. This is Bill and Deb with I Ride RV Adventures. Y'all take care. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.